You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. Whether it's for food, fuel, drinks, or snacks, about half of the U.S. population shops at a convenience store every day. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Who are you? Who are they? What do they stand for? Well, the first time I saw our guest speak, he burst onto the stage to the song Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars, wearing a backpack and exuding an amazing amount of energy. If that isn't amazing personal branding, I don't know what is. So today we're going to talk about inspiring you to market the heck out of anything, including yourself, your business, or anything else you want. Welcome to Convenience Matters. I'm Carolyn Schnare with NACS.
Hi, I'm Britt, also with NACS.
Well, as I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about branding, a little bit about marketing, and who better to do that for us than someone a lot of us know, who is Ernie Harker, the brand igniter of Ernburn branding and the author of Your Brand Sucks. So
Great
welcome,
title.
Ernie.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. It's great to be here.
I just love saying that. So that's why I gave it a little extra emphasis. Your brand sucks. Or maybe your brand is so great. So I guess that's where we're going to start a little bit. Ernburn Branding, which is your company, and I know you're a consultant. But tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this and why we invited you on the show, which is a really fun place to start.
That sounds great. Well, I've been a branding guy for about 15 years, but I didn't start as a branding guy. I started as an illustrator. I went to school to be an illustrator. And my first jobs were like doing storyboards and comprehensive illustrations for advertising. And I worked for a great ad company. 2 years later, I broke off and started doing my own creative production. That creative production led into more branded elements. Like, we do websites. We would do logo design. We would do, at that time, interactive DVDs or interactive CD-ROMs were really cool. Like you'd buy a music album on CDs. This totally dates me. I know most people are like, what's a CD, right? So you'd buy a CD and you could actually have interactive videos and music and interviews and stuff like that on the DVDs or CDs. And so we were doing a lot of design elements. I would do illustrations for like magazine ads and stuff like that. And so basically I was doing all these elements for brands. And I was only seeing little glimpses of them at a time until I started working for a couple different organizations, one of which was Maverik. This was back in 2001. And I started seeing that there's all these different touch points that companies and organizations try to create to persuade people to change the way they behave or the way they think. And I noticed that the really good brands were doing this in a way where every touch point built on the others. So the radio commercials built on the TV commercials, and they built on the print ads. They built on the internet ads. And so all these similar touch points created a holistic view or vision of the brand. And so I got all this experience doing those types of things. I thought, I need to be a little more thoughtful and deliberate about working with an organization on their brand, so I understood all their pieces instead of just one little keyhole view. And I think with Maverik, which is how most of the people at NACS know me, with Maverik, we started building an adventurous brand. And what that means is a brand that's centered on adventure. It means we borrow a lot of adventurous type elements. And that means visual elements and verbal elements. Words like trail and peak and summit and adventure, right? We also use images like mountains and streams and mountain biking and hiking and climbing, all those visual representations of adventure too. And when you use them consistently enough with the tone of Maverik's tone was like independence and excitement. If you use them in that tone over and over and over again, and incorporate those visual elements into your store design and stuff, you start to see a very visceral brand that is that is comprehensive instead of, a flash in the pan or a gimmick to get attention. And right. I think that's what the difference is between branding and like a good brand and a bad brand.
That's perfect. So as a marketer, I do marketing for NACS. I'm on the marketing team. And what you're describing is a cohesive multi-channel marketing campaign, right? I mean, is that yes. the key? When I think about, your brand sucks and you've got this, you go and you're a speaker and you're motivational and you have this, incredible platform. Is that the key when you think about, in a nutshell, how does a company do that? It kind of sounds simple when you're like, well, you just take the radio and you just take a commercial and you take your emails and you kind of just make it all work together by using similar imagery and you kind of find your path. Is that hard to do? How do you do that?
I think most people find it very hard to do. And here's the reason. They haven't predefined the personality and image of their brand. Like they don't know what the soul of their brand is. And if they don't know the soul of their brand, they can't curate like an artist or a gallery would curate paintings and stuff around a theme. Brands have to curate the verbal and visual language around what makes them special, what makes them different, the heart of their brand. And if they don't know who they are, what they do is they start doing like gimmicky things. They do things that create attention or sales or promotions or things like that. And those things they build on each other and they just become, unidentified. You're just part of the sea of sameness in the world.
And they don't make sense. You're like, what? Why are they, what?
Yeah. Well, it's not just knowing the soul of your brand. It's knowing your customers, right? Understanding their experience. What do you want your customer to feel the second they walk into your store? What adventure do you want them to go on? Where do you want them to look? How do you want them to experience your space and what you offer and your service? So yeah, you got to know yourself and you got to know them, right?
That's right. That's right. And here's the thing that when I consult with brands, the most important part of the brand needs to come from within the hearts of the owners and operators, because they're the ones that have to sustain and promote it. I've talked with organizations where they go, well, we just want to find out what our customer wants. What do our customers want in our brand? Well, we can do a bunch of interviews, do a bunch of surveys, and find out that the customer wants, by the way, they want clean, fast, and friendly. Surprise! They all want clean, fast, and friendly in the convenience industry, right? And they're less concerned about and fast again, and make it so transactionless. Just walk in, grab your stuff, and go is kind of what they want, and kind of like stay out of my way. Let the transaction be self-driven. And so the more you follow those prompts, then what do I add that's different? What experience do I create that's different if I've taken myself or the company, even at Maverik, we called them adventure guides, but this is the service representative. If you take them out of the mix, and you've stripped away any kind of visual or personality, visual personality from the experience, and you've given them fast, friendly, and clean, what do you got?
I mean, I think if your logo had a turtle on it and you're in the convenience industry and it's like, I don't know, holding like a bag of coins or something, I feel as though that right there is the imagery that a convenience retailer in today's space wouldn't want to project, because you're like, wow, I got to pay in cash and it's slow. No, thanks. But that's like a pitfall right there. I mean, maybe the owner loves turtles, or, maybe you live next to or you're positioned next to a turtle sanctuary and therefore it's perfectly understandable. And therefore you're knowing your audience. But I mean, there's stuff like that you just shouldn't do. Have you ever seen any, Ernie, any pitfalls that really is not a good idea? And I'm looking at imagery, but I mean, I'm sure there's some other things besides what you've said earlier that maybe retailers, but other companies in general should avoid.
I think you bring up a great example. in my market, there's a dental company that makes, I don't know, fake teeth. You know, they do smile. What do you call it? Smile makeovers? Okay, a smile makeover, and they have billboards. The company is called Stubbs Dental. Stubbs Dental.
Oh no!
So you're laughing because you're going, okay, am I going to get stubby teeth? Because
am I going to get stubby teeth?
There's no appeal in that.
That's what we're
way.
fixing.
Yeah, but this is, I imagine this is the name of the company, the name of the founder,
right?
Mr. Stubbs, Dr. Stubbs, and it's Stubbs Dental. And I think, man, he probably has associated Stubbs with his last name, so much so that he forgot that there's another meaning behind it, and that meaning may be disadvantageous to his market. Because when I hear of Stubbs Dental, that kind of scares me a little bit.
Right. So great example, Ernie. Thank you. The other side of that coin, who's doing all of this well? You know, who in the market are you seeing? And it could be, you know, any industry, but, you know, specifically if you have an example that is in the convenience industry, who is doing this well? Cohesive, multi-channel marketing campaigns that really they know the soul of their brand and they know their customers.
That is a good question. And the hard part to answer that question is it's the same people that are doing awesome, and you guys already know them. You know, it's like they're the poster children of like awesome brands, right? And so rather than kind of pat them on the back once again, I'd like to kind of take it into a different point of view. Cheetos, okay? Cheetos has an awesome brand right now, and here's some of the things they do.
Love Cheetos.
Oh, who doesn't? If you don't like Cheetos, there's something wrong with you, right? So what Cheetos has done is they've celebrated the orange, and that orange is in everything they do, and it's a very specific orange. They celebrate it on your fingers. They celebrate it in Chester the cheetah. Chester the cheetah will never have an affair, will never beat somebody up. It's an iconic person that the brand completely controls, that is instantly recognizable, lovable, interesting, and fun. The character attributes of Chester the cheetah reflects the personality of the Cheetos product. Now, obviously, it's a fried piece of cheesy corn, right? There is no inherent personality in cheesy corn, but Cheetos, the Fritos company, has created a personality behind this great product. So that's a good example of consistent use of personality and reflecting that personality in terms of like characters or celebrities or, you know, endorsements or whatever.
Along that perfect segue into when you're talking about celebrities and somebody, you know, everybody knows who has a tremendous brand. I hear you might have a story that involves a Chuck Norris.
I do have that is one of the cool stories of my life. Yeah. So
I'd love to hear it, Ernie.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought it up. When I was working at Maverik, my amazing creative team, and I think it's really important to know that oftentimes I get credit for building Maverik's brand, but there's no way I could have done it without like amazing, talented people there. And I basically was the guy that would like direct things, but so often other people came up with the good ideas. And one of those ideas was, let's give away a big sweepstakes prize for our loyalty program, and we're going to call it Truck Norris. Okay, Truck Norris. Like, okay. So what does that look like? How does that feel? And so anyway, we thought, if we do this, we're going to get sued unless we get permission from Chuck Norris. Our ad agency that places our media contacted over months. It took forever to get a hold of the Norris family. We finally got hooked up with Chuck Norris. We did some filming. So I got to go down with our film crew to go down and visit with Chuck Norris on his ranch in Navasota. And we were doing some TV commercials. And he is a guy that works out all the time. Like, he was like 77 years old when I was with him. Oh my gosh. And this guy's a rock star. I work out all the time. He destroyed me seriously destroyed me. I was sore for 4 days afterwards. But here's the cool story. So we just spent all this time filming, and I worked out with him that afternoon. And while we were working out, he said, "Hey, will you come over for dinner to the house?" Now he has these little cabins on his property that me and the film crew from Maverik were staying at. And so the idea to go to his house and have dinner was like epic. Okay. And the people that worked with Chuck Norris are going, "This doesn't happen very often, just so you know." So we're super, super excited. I find myself sitting right next to Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris is on my left at the head of the table. I'm to his right. And after meatloaf and mashed potatoes that we made together, I baked bread for him.
Oh.
That's another story. But after dinner, he turns to me and says, "Well, Ernie, what do you want to do now?" And I saw he showed me his theater room before. I go, "Chuck, actually his name is Carlos. And his family calls him Carlos." Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. So I'm trying to use the familiar term. "Carlos, it would be so cool. And this sounds corny, for us to go watch a Chuck Norris movie in your theater with you. Would you do that?" And he slams the table and he goes, "Let's do it." And I'm like, this is awesome. 5 minutes
fantastic.
later, I'm sitting right next to Chuck Norris in this huge lazy boy with a huge slice of apple pie and vanilla ice cream on there. We're reclined and we're watching Force of One together with Chuck Norris. And I'm like, this day could not get any better. And tears rolling down my cheek with Chuck Norris.
Is he giving you like color commentary throughout the entire film? I would have been like, "Tell me about this scene, Carlos."
Yes, he actually did a couple times. He said, "That water was freezing cold." He had to jump into a river. That water was freezing cold. It doesn't look as cold as it is, but it was freezing cold. I hated doing that. I think we did 2 takes, and I didn't want to do any more. Ooh. So it was fun to hear his stories.
Now that's a guy who knows how to brand himself.
Yes. And he definitely appreciates his brand very, very well. He knows exactly who he is and who his customers are, his audience is.
That's a cool story. Thanks for sharing that. And I had no idea. I guess I'm not as much of an aficionado as maybe you are, especially now that his name is Carlos. But I will. Yeah. Now the whole world will know. The whole Convenience Matters listening world. If you learn something. Right.
So when you see him on the street, you say, "Hello, Mr. Carlos." Hello, Carlos.
And then give him a big hug. He probably loves that.
I did meet him at NACS Show 2019. He was with us. I stood with him for a few minutes. He was a very cool guy. Indeed.
Oh, he's great. Great.
Ernie, in our time remaining, we've got, a little bit longer. We could spend all day here. This is always fun talking to you. The reason I brought up remembering your very first time on one of our NACS stages, this is going back, 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe. And you had the backpack. You were living adventure on that stage. You were not only branding yourself, but branding, because you were speaking about Maverik at the time. But you went on, obviously, to continue to write your book. Your Brand Sucks. And it's not directed at anyone here, obviously. Right. What were some of the things that our audience here, that our listeners will learn, but then also, we'll tell you where to get it later, of course. But what are some of the main key in a very quick nutshell, the things that you're going to teach someone when they look at your book, read your book?
Awesome. Sure. I started at one point in time with 7 different steps. And I've been able to whittle those down into 4 different steps. And I use those 4 steps when I consult with people. They're the most important elements of branding. The first one is to understand what your brand spark is, the key point of difference between your organization and every other organization. And that can either be discovered, that's natural, or it can be created. For example, Maverik, the adventure brand, was not something naturally inside of Maverik already, but it was created and was identified as a strong brand attribute that the owners of the company, the customers of Maverik enjoyed. And so we created a brand spark around adventure. Some organizations actually have something very unique about their organization already. And that brand spark needs to be mined, kind of brushed off, and then polished and then presented to their customers in a way that's remarkable. The first thing is discover your brand spark. The second is identify your target customer. Now, in the convenience world, I've heard multiple times, so anybody who drives a car, anybody who eats food is our target customer. And that's not really the case. Just because they buy from you doesn't make them your target customer. Think about who's the lowest hanging fruit. Takes the least amount of effort to get the greatest amount of revenue from. Who buys most often from you, so increased frequency, and also buys the most, what's their basket size from you. So that's your target customer. And it's important to then, once you know what your brand spark is and who your target customer is, what is your core belief? What is it about your company that you bring to the world that is more important than the money you make? Why do you do this? Why do you serve these customers? What is it that you're going to bring to them that's above and beyond just making a buck? Because that drives a lot of the things that you end up doing. You know, what charitable organizations you belong to, the language and tone that you use to communicate with your customers. And then the last thing is, this is the most fun, it's establishing your brand adjectives. What 5 or 6 adjectives would you use to describe your company, 2 of which can't be used to describe any other competitor? Once you have those 4 building blocks, you can then go about curating the visual and verbal language to represent it. And what's interesting about branding is colors, patterns, textures, fonts have inherent personalities to them. Red has its own personality. You don't get to change it. Red means energetic, aggressive, sometimes angry. That's what red means. Yellow means happy, cheerful, bright. Light blue means calm, peaceful. You don't get to say, oh, well, we're a really laid back company that's all about peace and just harmony and stuff. So we want to go with red and black as our colors. Like, if you do, you're going to confuse the heck out of your customers, right? So really, once you know who you are, you can figure out, well, what fonts should I use? Because the fonts have specific personalities attributed to them. They can be described a certain way using adjectives that you've used to describe your company. So use those adjectives and your core belief, then to go out and start analyzing or looking at fonts, colors, textures, patterns, images, styles, so that you can curate a brand image, look, and feel that is congruent with who you are. So those are the 4 steps. And I think when organizations follow this process, they can sharpen an existing brand or rebrand themselves, the way Maverik did back in 2001, from a very cowboy Western brand with an independent spirit to an outdoor adventure brand with an independent spirit.
That's really cool. Our as the whole time I'm sitting here thinking, like looking at our Convenience Matters logo, and I'm like, it's green. And what else can I use? What can I do with us to describe us? So I think I have some homework on this one too, because obviously we want a lot of listeners and we want to know what they're talking about, so or what they're thinking about. So I got some homework to do, and Britt, you and I'll talk because you.
Well, just powwow. I mean, I've got brown guidelines coming out of my ears for NACS. We can talk all day long about the importance of owning the C, like the Cheetos, owning the orange, and that we're fresh and we're kind of breathing life into the convenience industry. And there was a lot of thought that went into our rebrand a few years ago. Right? Yeah, I'll talk about that all day.
And Britt, that's beautiful, because when you say breathing life and vitality and freshness into the convenience industry, the colors you've selected are perfectly matched for that.
Aren't they great? I love the richness.
Bold C. It's like, okay, we're here. We mean business. Yeah. So you guys are doing now it's about telling the story and making sure the story gets out there with other images and vocabulary that reinforces that freshness.
Through things like podcasts, telling our stories with awesome guests like yourself.
Exactly.
Full circle. See that? How we do that? Full circle.
We did it.
Done. You guys are awesome.
So Ernie, now I've talked enough about Your Brand Sucks, the book. Can you tell us a little bit about where to find it? And then also a little bit about where other folks and listeners can find more about you too?
You betcha. Well, so my book is available on Amazon. Just look for Your Brand Sucks, How to Ignite a Brand That Doesn't. And I don't expect people to think that their brand actually sucks, but it should give them pause to reflect and go, does my brand suck? Or what can I do to make it less sucky? So it's available on Kindle. It's available on print. And I just have it published on Audible now. And you'll be able to hear my voice, read my book with all the energy and passion that I bring to the table. So it's about 3.5 hours long. So it's not a big, long book. This isn't a book that takes a lot of effort to read, but it's definitely something that you'd reference. Hang on to the book and then kind of go back and reference it as you're going through your brand evolution.
I bet that was fun, reading your own book and now being able to pass that on to everyone else to really like, hey, if you can't come to one of my, a place where I'm the keynote speaker, you can hear my energy and what I'm passionate about. I bet that was a blast.
It was super, super fun, but I tend to speak really fast when I'm excited. And so I had to redo hours of it. Yeah.
Oh, really? They're like, slow down, Ernie.
The first take was in an hour and 20 minutes, and they're like, no.
Try it again.
And then when I slowed down myself in audio, it just sounded like this.
Good party trick.
Fun fact, anybody who's listening on the podcast, depending on where you're listening, you can put us in time and a half speed or double speed or slower speed. So if we all talk too fast for you, just go back, download it again, hit the halftime speed, and it'll all make sense to you.
Love it.
Awesome. Hey, people can reach me at Ernburn.com if they'd like to reach out. So I'd love to field any questions or any, comments and stuff like that. So thanks so much for having me, Carolyn and Britt. You guys are awesome.
Oh my gosh, it was great to catch up with you again. It's been way too long. Well, thank you so much for teaching us some ideas. Go ahead and check out a great book, a great read or listen. And thank you so much for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.